Lights, camera, action. Today we have producer extraordinaire Scott Franklin with us today. He started producing for Darren Aronofsky on the feature film The Wrestler in 2008, but goes back with Darren on The Team, going back to Darren's first film, Pie, where he was associate producer, and has worked continuously with Darren Aronofsky throughout his career. I have known Scott since he produced The Wrestler, and have known Darren going back to when he was a student at Harvard in the early 90s. I could not be more thrilled than to have my friend, Scott Franklin, on Conversations with Charlie today. Thanks for coming, brother.
My pleasure, Charlie. Looking forward to it.
Okay, we got through that. That was pretty good.
Well done.
So
well done.
The journey for you is confusing to me, because we met on when you worked on The Wrestler. I know Darren going back to when he was a student at Harvard. He kind of roosted around me when he was making Pie, but we never met during Pie and Requiem. I certainly knew Eric Watson. I knew Ann Ruark. I knew a lot of the people that were on those jobs. And then you became the presence as producer for Darren on The Wrestler. And then after that, the rest is history. You were at Ohio State and then went, I think, but I don't know much. Like, I actually want to know, I want to know more about your history. How did you go? How does a guy from Ohio State who studied, I guess, communications, I don't know, end up going to LA and then maybe coming to New York and joining Darren Aronofsky as an associate producer on his first film? How did that meeting take place, and how did things begin for you? Tell me, brother.
Oh man, I mean, that you're running a large window there, Charlie. That's a gamut. I was a student at Ohio State, but I had always dreamed of working in the film industry. I didn't know for sure what capacity, and being a kid from Long Island and not really being all that familiar with the business of the arts, and not having any family or friends that were in it. I didn't even know that there was such a thing as film school. And let's just say maybe I wasn't the greatest student in the world, or that even at the time, if I knew I would want to go to film school. So I just knew when when I was a little kid, my father's a huge movie fan. And when I was a little kid, I would love going to the movies with my dad. And he would pull me out of school, say I had a dentist appointment, and I thought I was going to the dentist, and there I am, he's making me cut the line for Empire Strikes Back. We watched, the Warriors together when I was a little kid, all kinds of films. And so I was always a big fan of the movies and of cinema and of film. And so when I left Ohio State, I just went out to LA. I didn't really know many people. I had, one friend at the time who was an assistant to an agent, another friend who was working as a PA in music videos and whatnot. I was 21, 22 years old. So I hooked up with them, and I started working as a PA in music videos and commercials. And I was learning.
What years are we now? Now give me some time span. When
95, 94, 95.
So you moved to LA 94, 95. Okay, so that's interesting. Good. Got it. The context is there.
Yeah. I lived there for, I think, about 9 months, and I hated it. I didn't really love working as a PA in music videos and commercials, just doing lockups and kind of, menial tasks. But I was ambitious, and I met a lot of people, and through, meeting one person to the next person, I met a guy who became friendly with the guy who was a manager at the time, who was friends with Darren. He wasn't Darren's manager. I just got to talking and saying, hey, look, what do you want to do? And, I said, look, I want to work in film. I think I want to take the producing track. I've learned a lot working my way up in the music video commercial world. But I want to learn, film producing, and that's what I want to do. So, and just in conversation, I said, I miss New York. I hated working in LA, which over the years I have come to love LA, but at the time, it wasn't really clicking for me. So he said, look, I've got a friend who's, AFI grad, and he's going to, he's going to be a great filmmaker, and he's starting up a film in Brooklyn with no budget, no money, and he's looking for all kinds of crew and producing help. And so he put me in touch with Darren, who said they had this no budget movie. They were trying to make it for, I think, 60s. I don't remember, $65,000 or something. And he put us in touch. Darren sent me the script. I read it. I loved it, and I figured if I'm going to go work for free, like everyone else on the movie, the only place I can work for free is back home in New York, and back home with my parents. And so that's what I did. I moved back to New York, and I came on as an assistant to the producer, Eric Watson, who is one of my closest friends to this day and was a great mentor of mine. And I learned a lot from Eric and from Darren. And moved back to New York and became, started working on Pi, and eventually became the associate producer on Pi, and worked in a similar capacity under Eric on Requiem for a Dream, and became a co-producer on Requiem for a Dream. And that's how I got my start, and that's how I met Darren.
And then you did those two films. I mean, with Darren, I literally got to meet him when he was making his first student film, Supermarket Sweep, and his first stuff when he was at Harvard before he went to AFI, and had kind of a personal relationship that continued on even when he was making Pi and I was at Technicolor. They came by and asked if they could find help for the black and white puzzle that they had to get through, the way that they shot on 16 reversal and all of that. So, but the thing that's interesting to me is you went through those two films, and then Darren goes off and does a film in Canada. He shot, it was in Montreal, I believe, Fountain. When Fountain was going on, where were you at that point? Did you take some time off? Did you work for somebody else?
Well, I learned so much under, working with those guys, and, they were both low budget films. And, so I worked for free on Pi and for very little on Requiem for a Dream. And, obviously years had passed and we'd gotten older. Now, in between those films, we had a good network of people, Maddie, Eric, some other guys. And I got back into doing music videos and commercials, and was at that point more seasoned. Than I wasn't, working as a PA, but I was more producing and production managing those, throughout those years.
Were you producing? Because Maddie did a lot of music videos.
Yeah, I did some with Maddie, and eventually I ended up even becoming a music video director for a few years, which is a whole nother story. But
I had no idea that you did that. Yeah. Tell me about that. And what were the years that you did that?
You're skipping far ahead.
I don't want to skip that far.
No, that's okay. I'm just playing. So, when he was doing The Fountain, I was working as doing that, and then a lot of producing music videos and commercials. And Darren actually came to me with an idea, and he had said, I want to make a film about an over-the-hill aging professional wrestler. You want to dive into the research? So while they were off doing The Fountain, I started researching and making inroads into that, lower tier wrestling world, the independent wrestling world. So I made a lot of contacts, went to a lot of shows, I took some videos, I interviewed a lot of the guys, and Darren said, why don't you write an outline? So while they're doing The Fountain, I was just doing the research and, just wrote an outline, and then eventually liked the outline and wrote a treatment. And years later, we brought in a writer to write the screenplay. And we made The Wrestler, and that was the first film I produced with Darren after he did the Fountain.
You wrote the structure and the treatment and the bones of The Wrestler before it was handed off to a writer. I was not aware of that.
Well, it changed, but it was really just about making the inroads into the world.
But did you have like the structure of the father-daughter relationship already built in?
No, I didn't have I really just had the wrestler story, and Rob Siegel did a great job, developing, his own world, with the daughter and with the girlfriend, Marissa Tomei. None of that was in my treatment. It was really just more like an outline about, these guys' lives and the things they go through, living out of vans, and, some of them taking steroids. I mean, a lot of it was fabricated, and a lot of it was, you know, just really just outline of these guys' lives, you know.
Right,
What I
because they
learned.
live because the character, the Mickey Rourke character, lives in a trailer, right? I mean, he's
Yeah, he lives in a trailer, and he on the road. He lives out of his van, you know. And you know, some of these guys did that, and you know, but it's you know, it's really not after any one person's life. It's you know, it's a caricature of you know, and pieces melded together of a multitude of you know, possibilities of the way some of these guys live.
yeah, I mean, because it's such a beautifully told story. I mean the relationship, him as a dad, him trying to have a romantic life, him having to do things that were not, you know, part of his life, working in the butcher, you know, I mean, whatever, you know, like the journey of that character was so interesting.
I agree. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
amazing.
Rob did a great job. Rob did a great job with that.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
amazing. And then for you, you continue on one after the other. After that, Black Swan, you have it appears that I didn't even know about I was not engaged with you on the film that you did on Metallica and Lou Reed, but I guess that got done in the
Well,
middle of all
no,
that.
that was a music video that we did as just with Darren's relationship with Lou. But you know, but prior to the wrestler, I produced a small independent film, which Hounddog. I don't know if you recall,
Yeah,
which is what gave you know. And Eric Watson came with me to Sundance, and I think it was you know when Eric wanted to take a sabbatical or whatnot. Um, I think it was Eric's vote of confidence in me after seeing the producing work I'd done on Hounddog and being at Sundance with him. They gave Darren the confidence to have me produce The Wrestler after helping with the research and development of it, you know. And so, you know, that's where that was born.
and and tell me the story of the process of securing Mickey Rourke for the rest.
You know, Mickey was the person we always wanted in the film. You know, it was challenging to get the film made, to get the budget with where Mickey was in his career, but we courted him for years, and I think Rob might have even I don't remember whose idea it was, but I mean, it felt like it was written for Mickey. And you know, we met with Mickey dozens of times leading up to when we finally secured the financing with Mickey to play the role.
And talk a little bit, you know, everybody wants to, you know, every conversation about a film, regardless of securing talent or how people met each other, talk a little bit about the journey of financing. And I actually, you know, maybe even let's wind the clock a little further back again. Sorry to do that, but you were with Darren in a role going back to Pi over all of this time. But the formation of a company began with Pi, the company Protozoa, which still, I guess, sort of exists today in some form, right? And then there was a visual effects company called Amoeba Proteus, because Darren was completely fascinated with that and wanted to have his hands in that business, as well as he had people in his life that were VFX folks like Dan Schrecker, and to a certain extent,
Sure.
Jeremy Dawson, who was sort of supporting some of that. Tell me a little bit about the foundation and the founding and the beginning of Protozoa.
Well, I can't really speak to the foundation or the beginning of Protozoa. That's a little before my time. I mean, that
Right.
was
So
you know,
that was with Eric and
yeah, but I can tell you when you, more importantly, when you're talking about you know the financing of films and getting films made and how it's changed over the years, and you know from Black Swan, I mean from Pi to Requiem to Black Swan. I mean every film is you know every film's financing, especially in the independent film world. Anyway, you know everyone that we've done or that I've done is all taking a different course.
in
You know,
the wrestler you had Wild Bunch, which
correct.
was foreign sales. So I'm taking a wild guess. You had a foreign sales model for that,
Yeah.
which was a pre-sales model that helped secure minimum guarantee. Correct?
Yes. Yeah. Correct. You know, and Pi was just guerrilla filmmaking. Pi was just, you know, it was all hands on deck, and you know, it was like, here's what we have, here's how much more money we need, here's the equipment and props and set pieces that we need. And if anybody can pull them together, that's kind of where I cut my teeth. And just, fortunately it was filmed in New York, and I had a lot of the things we need, like trucks. I had resources to get free trucks, and the computer parts to build Euclid. I had, resources to get free computer parts. So, and free computers from, but it just kind of, things just worked out. And it's kind of how I kind of got ingratiated into the circle of these guys that all had known each other from film school and from Harvard and whatnot. Because, I didn't know any of them, I just came in, 5, 6 years younger than them. And, some Long Island kid with, very little film experience, no film school education, just, was just, resourceful dude that could source what we needed. And, and then, hit it off with them, and then just learned a lot under working with Eric,
And Eric stayed in the game through Fountain, but was not with you on Wrestler. Is that correct?
Correct.
That's what I thought.
Yeah. But he gave Darren, he really gave Darren the vote of confidence, having worked in, on Pie and Requiem, with doing a lot of low budget guerrilla type filmmaking, and knowing the Wrestler was going to be a challenge with the budget that we had, having seen what I had done on Hounddog, some of the stuff I'd done in the commercial and music video space, it was just, Wrestler was a very, even though we had money, more than we had on Pie and Requiem, only barely more than Requiem, it was a challenging movie. And it took some outside the box thinking, like using real audiences and partnering with real wrestling promotions, and
the type of stuff that you would do.
Yeah, exactly.
So basically, from Wrestler on, you have been the main guy as the producer. But you've still stayed in contact with Eric. Has Eric come back occasionally, or?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
And Ari Handel and Mark Heyman sort of have been continuous as part of the team. There's sort of core group.
Yeah, Ari's still, writing and producing with Darren now, and Mark is off doing his own thing, but wrote Black Swan, and was always a great collaborator. It's a family, and once you're a part of it, it's kind of like you're a part of it for life. As you know, Charlie, you're a family member.
Family member, absolutely. And then there were other people that you were able to jump in with during space and time between projects, sometimes after other projects wrapped. Yeah. Darren was kind of not on stuff for a while, like Julie Delpy on 2 Days in New York and Zipper, and of course Jackie was made as well, and a whole other group of feature films that are all under the producing engine. Are these all under the category of producing efforts by Protozoa with you and Darren both, or sometimes just you on your own?
Well, so there's some were me on my own, and some were, with Protozoa. I mean, Zipper was a Protozoa production. Jackie was always a Protozoa production that I, as the producer at Protozoa, I became, one of the producers on Jackie. Julie Delpy and 2 Days in New York, that was pretty much a solo effort of me producing. Julie needing a seasoned New York independent producer, and we got partnered up through some mutual friends at CAA agents, and that was a great experience. Having cut my teeth as a producer on Hounddog, and then really cutting my teeth as the sole producer on The Wrestler, and being able to take what I've learned working with Eric and Darren as a producer, and be able to go and produce a film on my own, without Darren directing and with someone else directing, was a great experience, an eye-opening experience, and I even had a small part in that movie.
That's fantastic. I love it. Like I'm trying to visualize, but I think I remember seeing it. It's been a while since I've seen that film, but I love it. I saw it.
We'll have to pull up the clip of when the weed dealer comes to bring some weed to Julie and Chris Rock. Well, not really to the guy who plays Julie's brother-in-law at Julie and Chris Rock's house. That's my.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. So, tell me a little bit about growing up in Belmore, Long Island. I know nothing of your early life.
It's typical Long Island uh, suburban upbringing. Like I said, I didn't know anything from film school coming at, growing up in Belmore, Long Island. But it was great. Like I said, I was a movie fan. I was a film fan.
Well, there was definitely a unique moment in Long Island that you described to me that is still fixed in my memory, and it was only recently that you told me the story.
Which one's that?
I visited you on the set of perhaps one of the largest productions to ever happen on Long Island, Noah,
Yeah.
in Planters Arboretum, where you produced more water in one location than I think has ever been showered on any piece of land there. And there was a shoot at night where all of Darren's buddies were in the Video Village screening in the tent, and you were behind all of them talking and chatting about takes. And a hand grips your shoulder.
Yeah.
It's a guy. It's of course the actor Ray Winstone. You have to tell this story for me.
Well, I didn't realize it was that funny to you, but yeah, it was a fun moment. It was late at night. All those scenes were night shoots, and that was a very trying film. We got shut down by Hurricane Sandy, and then there was a tree blocked our path, so we were probably at the Arboretum doing all that outdoor rain stuff overnight. Mid-October, late October, when we were supposed to be doing it in September, where obviously the weather was a lot more forgiving. So we're showering all this rain on hundreds, maybe thousands of people, and it's freezing cold in the mid, 3, 4 in the morning, in mid to late October, and everyone was tired. We were all on the Video Village, and it was Darren and Ari, two Harvard guys, and another guy that worked with us from Yale, and another one from Brown, and I think Trek was there. It was another Harvard guy, and it was all pretty smart guys. I'm no dummy, but it was all Ivy League smart, and Ray Winstone came up from behind me and with it in his Ray Winstone cool Cockney or British accent, said to me, "How the fuck did they let you into this club?" And it was funny, and I think everybody overheard it, and people overheard it, and everybody was laughing. So it was a nice, it was a comical moment that broke up a tense evening.
Yes. I could. Those were long days and long nights, and an incredible film to make because of the shooting in Iceland that was composited in as the background and the visual effects that were done. Of course, I was still around for that and part of that when all the materials were coming together, and it was such a remarkable achievement.
Yeah, thank you.
Film. And I think what's interesting is dialing back a bit, and this is a part of the story that I don't know much about. I don't know how much you're able to talk about it, but I believe that when Darren made Fountain was the first time that there was a collaboration with Arnon Milchan. Arnon was not on Requiem, right?
Correct.
And then Arnon kind of stayed along with Protozoa. What was Arnon's relationship with you guys over the years? I'm just curious about that. He's a big figure in the business, and I noticed him attached to a lot of stuff over time.
Well, look, I think he loved the Fountain, and I think people who have seen the Fountain and really appreciate it. So it didn't perform as well as everybody would have liked at the box office. But Arnon never stopped believing in Darren as a filmmaker. And the first opportunity he had to come back and get back into business with Darren on a studio film, he jumped right in, and he's from what I've met of Arnon and from what I know of Arnon, he's been an incredibly supportive partner. He never doubted or wavered with us on Noah, and he was an incredible ally.
And was he also? Obviously, it was the Fountain, but was there any involvement from Arnon on either Black Swan or The Wrestler, or no?
No. Those were independent films.
And those were separate. No, I just was wondering if he had any name or hand in it or support during that period of time.
No, I mean those were much lower budget films. You know, Black Swan was a co-finance production with Fox Searchlight and Cross Creek Pictures with Brian Oliver when he was at Cross Creek. And
tell me about Cross Creek and what that was like and how that relationship happened, because I these are guys from the Carolinas. I forget where they're from.
Well, no, I mean they're from Louisiana. The guys that own it. But you know, Brian was my point of contact, and you know what a small world it is that when we were on our last legs and the movie was about to go under because the initial financier who promised to fund the movie, and we were 5 weeks into pre-production and he ran out of money, and I think his goal was to kind of off-sell it, get in there and then raise the money, and he couldn't do it. You
guys were about to go into principal, you were in prep,
yeah,
financing got pulled, and you needed someone to come in to fill in.
Yeah, and so but we went to Fox Searchlight, and we had great success with The Wrestler, who had initially passed on Black Swan and wanted to take a look at it when we had finished it, and especially once we got the independent financing. We went to them, so look, we're a couple of weeks out, and they said, look, they were in for half. So Rogue Sutherland, who's a great friend and agent at CAA, put us in touch with the guys at Cross Creek, and coincidentally, we needed a lot of money the next day. It wasn't time for contracts or wires contracts or bonds or anything. We needed money the next day to keep the office open and to keep prep on track. And coincidentally enough, Brian Oliver was at the time the president who was running Cross Creek, and I knew Brian really well from the commercial music video days when he worked at one of the companies that I produced with a lot. So it was a great coincidence. We had a great relationship already. We had a lot of trust in each other, and he was able to, that relationship helped their comfort in not just coming in on the movie, but being able to take the risk of sending us over a big chunk of money to keep our doors open the next day while we worked out the deal and worked out the contract. And as we all know, it worked out well.
Worked out really well.
Worked out really well.
Are you allowed to talk about the other stuff going on with Black Swan today?
I mean, look, which stuff are you referring to?
What you just referred to when we talked the other day.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, it's no secret. Who knows if it'll happen, but we're in the early exploration of doing a Broadway production of Black Swan on Broadway, which we're really, really excited about. We've got a great creative team, but it's very early days, and it's a very complicated film to translate to Broadway. And I mean, look at who knows what's going to happen with Broadway right now and the arts and that kind of stuff. So we're excited about it. We're excited about the prospect of it, but it's early days, and we've got a lot of hurdles and a big mountain to climb, but we're hopeful.
What's going on with the Jessica Chastain film, The Good Nurse?
We are super excited about that one. We have an incredible director, Tobias Lindholm, slated to direct, and it's going to be a Netflix film, and we're doing it together with Film Nation, and it's Jessica Chastain and Eddie Redmayne, and we were supposed to shoot this fall before COVID, but so now we're just in the process of scheduling and finding a date that works for Tobias, Jessica, and Eddie. So we're confident we'll be shooting that early to mid 2021. And it's a great project, great script based on a wildly insane true story about basically the most prolific serial killer in the history of the United States. We've been attached to it for a long time and developing it for a long time with an incredible writer, Christy Wilson Cairns, who just won the Academy Award, and it's a great script and a great project. So hopefully we'll be calling you on that one soon, Charlie.
I love that.
Yeah.
So what's up for for our good friend, Mr. Aronofsky, are you allowed to talk about projects that you're planning on actually shooting that Darren will direct going forward, or?
We're working on something, and he's working on something, but it's close and it's personal, and well, we'll see. It's early days, and it's this. We'll see what happens.
And then what other, right now during this period of time, I mean, we live in this twisted isolation right now. And I mean, on August 28th, there was certainly an industry announcement that movie theaters that have opened. I haven't seen any open personally, but what's your feeling right now, and what's the buzz that you're getting about where our world is going? What is the Scott Franklin spin?
There's really not much buzz because I don't think anybody really knows for sure. Look, it's all speculation. But I think, as shown by this early quarantine and the way society gobbled up all of the content, the movie industry will never go away. I'm hopeful, and I do believe, I think now is actually a great time, because I think a lot of great people and a lot of incredible creative people have been developing and thinking and working towards coming out of this with lots of projects ready to go. And this isn't going to last forever. I mean, one thing we've shown in this country through a lot of tragedies and a lot of controversy is great resiliency, and this won't last forever. And I do think that it's been great sitting home watching some films that we would have liked to have seen in theaters, and it's been great sitting home streaming some incredible TV shows and series and films. But I think that when people do feel safe enough and confident enough, to get back to work and be filming in the way that we know how, and I think that people are going to be excited to get back to the theater. I mean, I don't know if it'll be 6 months or a year and a half, but when the time comes, I think people will be tired of watching films that should be screened on the big screen in their living rooms, and there have been some really good films that I've seen that were supposed to be released during this time that, I wish I saw in the theater.
Yeah, no, it's remarkable. I mean, there have been some real compromises that have been made. I think, there is an imagination, I think, on the part of the high-level streamers that are 4K distributors, that everyone is somehow set up with, some form of either huge screen projection and Atmos sound at home, but that's just not the case.
No, it's not. And I think that people, at the end of the day, there are films that are meant to be seen in the theater as evidence, of even recent box office, which have been good. And I think when we do rebound, I think the box office numbers are going to get better than we've seen in the last few years, because I think people are going to be hungry to get out to a theater and watch a comedy with an audience, or, watch a horror film with an audience. I mean, that's the way some of these films are supposed to be watched, and that's the way some of these films are best enjoyed.
I want to go back to financing again, because you are.
Right. Let's do it, Charlie.
You are a producer, and people like to talk about money.
That they do.
And I think that the old model, well, at least under the wrestler, the old model, and it was the old model at the time, was to pre-sell films and finance on pre-sales commitments, and then to do some form of math against the various rebates and incentives that were available, and then to balance that debt that you were going to have collateral on with a certain amount of equity. What is your vision now, or even in general now? I mean, over the years, let's even treading back and moving forward. What is your vision of the world of debt versus the world of equity, and how you've worked as a producer with Darren and otherwise to make films happen? I'm curious to see whether or not the debt route has more eroded more and the equity route has risen? What is your playbook?
Like I said earlier, I don't think there is a playbook. I think that every film, especially independent film, that maybe the type of film that used to go under the foreign sales model, that would have some debt and some equity, some bank financing. I think that every film is its own animal when it comes to financing. And I think there will be some films that are primarily debt financed, and I think there's going to be other films where people are going to have to take risks and they're going to be heavier equity financed. I think the pre-sale market has gotten a little bit tougher, but I think, again, like I said earlier, I do think that the theater industry will rebound, which will hopefully help elevate that foreign pre-sales market again. I think that there are lots of buyers. There will be lots of buyers in the U.S. hopefully for distribution, because there's only that many more outlets now. Are they all theatrical? No, but I mean, there's, like you said, the top streamers, they've got their game pretty buttoned up, and there's more entering the marketplace that are going to be competitive. So, that landscape is there, and some of them are pushing for theatrical releases as well. I mean, Netflix bought some of their own brick and mortar theaters. Amazon has released some of their films theatrically, and I think that the other streamers will follow suit. So I think there's definitely going to be some changes, and I think a lot of them will be for the good and for the better of the filmmaker, looking to get their films made. I think there's going to be a lot of opportunity, and I do think that there will be some of the traditional theatrical release and potential foreign sales, or studio co-fis, or indie distributor co-fi productions with some equity financing partner, like we did Black Swan, the Fox Searchlights of the world. I don't think that business will go anywhere once the world rights itself, which it will. It won't be like this forever.
The other question I have is when you talk to a lot of, Darren doesn't really fit into this category of having to struggle and make low budgets, and with the risk of selling at a number that that you to be concerned about what you're going to sell at. But as a producer, how do you evaluate the risk for making back the money, for setting up budgets that will be profitable for investors? How are you selling to an investor now what you're making, or do you even have to worry about that because it's packaged with so much talent and with such great teams that it's really not that great a concern for each story?
Again, like I said, it's the same similar answer, that everyone is different. And yes, it obviously helps when you have a package of incredible talent, like we did on Mother with Darren, Jennifer Lawrence, Javier Bardem, and an incredible supporting cast, Ed Harris, Michelle Pfeiffer. But I think one thing that producers and directors and filmmakers are going to have to do is everything's going to be done for a price. I mean, if you haven't learned or don't know how to stretch the dollar and get the money on screen, budgets are definitely getting tighter, and they'll probably get tighter, and that's okay. I mean, that's part of it. So if you show me a film that said we have too much money, no matter what the budget is, you never have enough. So you've got to figure out how to use what you have and put it on the screen. And at some point, if you don't get, say, your full budget and you're getting 80% of it, you got to figure out how to make the movie for 80% of what you wanted to make it for. And it's those type of challenges, and to me also those type of decisions you need to make, when you're at the goal line, are the decisions that make a great film. It's what are you going to cut? And usually, if you're able to cut something and still feel confident and happy to make and positive about the film you're about to make, then you probably didn't need it in the first place. And it's just trimming the fat, and I think that those decisions help you make a better film.
But also in looking out for equity financiers, there's a tremendous outreach to people who are non-industry as well as those who are, right? So when you're going out to raise money, there's the high net worth individuals who are the folks that want to dip their feet into the water, and then there are those people when you had the opportunity to approach Cross Creek, they were not out of the space, right? In other words, they were not just money guys. They actually knew the space they were entering into.
Well, I mean, Black Swan was their first film, so it's not like they were new to the space. And yeah, they were, equity investors that put together a pool of equity investors to become Cross Creek. So yeah, they were first time film investors. So they were.
That was their first time.
That was their first film. Yeah, I mean, they had a knowledgeable person running the company at the time, Brian. But the company and the money guys themselves, that was all of their first film. And that was, like I said earlier, that was a studio co-fi or mini major co-fi.
Tell me the story about the prep and how you put together locations for The Wrestler and for Black Swan and all of that. I mean, you're intimately involved in every stage of the process and how you did what you did. Those were great achievements for how you did what you did.
Thank you, Charlie. The Wrestler was a very interesting prep and very unique, and it was one of the favorite films I ever made. First off, we started out with finding the trailer park where Mickey's home was going to be, and we set that up. But then, as far as the venues for the wrestling matches, like I said, we partnered with existing wrestling promotions. So I believe 3 out of 4 of them, we went and used the locations where they were putting on the shows. The one in Broadway, the hardcore match, which was in Philadelphia, is the one time we stepped out of New Jersey. And the other ones were all, I think there was one where where the promotion didn't have a location, and we found it together in, I think it was a church or a community center or something somewhere in New Jersey. And we branched out from there. We tried to, obviously, if we had back-to-back days, if we could stay as close as possible and have the move from one location to the next be as short as possible and kind of work our way. The boardwalk scene was a no-brainer in New Jersey. I mean, the boardwalk scene to Asbury Park, and then
absolutely,
yeah. And then we were fortunate enough to get the king of Asbury Park and Bruce Springsteen to do the closing credits song, which was incredible. So that was great. And Black Swan was a different kind of challenge because we had a week of exteriors in New York, which we shot first, maybe 10 days. And then we needed to find a theater. We needed to find a theater where we can do those amazing shots that we did that went from the stage down the stairs into the dressing rooms and the hallways and in one shot, and that was going to be a challenge, especially in New York with you're not going to get a Broadway theater or something at Lincoln Center. And so we went up to SUNY Purchase, which has an incredible arts program and has a great theater. And we happened to be shooting at a time that they were dark in January, and they gave us their theater, and it worked out great. So we were pretty much, outside of our week to 10 days of exterior in New York to start, and we had the 4 or 5 days in the apartment in Brooklyn, which was Nina's apartment with her mother. We were all at SUNY Purchase, so it was great. We were able to just park ourselves there and be there for a month or so, and just go to the same place every day and not have to move, and it worked out really well.
Outrageous, gorgeous. And then for me, what you guys did after that later on with Noah in Iceland, I mean, that was insane. Tell me a little bit about the way that everything came together. First of all, how did everything come together for Noah? Tell me about, I was obviously there because my job was to make sure that you could shoot on film.
Yeah. Wasn't easy, was it, with all that water?
And you kept calling me back and saying, Charlie, can you put a square peg in a round hole? And I'm like, I sure can, but I'm going to have to use
it. That's what we always do. Don't we always put square pegs in round holes?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
But I got us there. But, oh, my God, sweating bullets all the way.
Oh, yeah.
and doing a counter budgets between digital capture and film. To me, you know, working with you and Darren was always about the love of the image
Overcoming the challenges.
and
And
also loving film. I mean, you know,
absolutely. Well, I mean, you know, throw Maddie into the mix, and you know, and you know,
I mean, it was just beautiful. But then the work that not just got done by the visual effects artists doing creature creation, which was absolute. I mean, the work that I saw done creating the birds, that was just, it was insane. It was insane. That creature creation work that was done by ILM, I believe,
yes,
was outrageous.
thank you.
But then you had, I visited the set in Planners Arboretum, and then you had the entire composited background is all Iceland, and so everything surrounding that circular treed off area where the ark was in Planners was all composited in Icelandic
Lance,
lush green land. Um,
maybe I got to watch this film again, Charlie. What are you talking about?
it was beautiful work, bro.
Thank
But
you.
but to me, once again, producer puzzle. Where do you shoot? Iceland. Tell me the story of Iceland. I don't. I mean, I don't think I don't know the story of. I know that you shot in Iceland. I know nothing of how the team decided. Planners Arboretum was easy for me. I mean, easy. What am I going to say? You had to do construction. You had to build an ark. That was a lot of work.
Yeah.
It was in the New York area. It was like, you know, it was the Darren perimeter. Iceland, no, not that.
Yeah.
That was a choice that was made very specific at that moment. Tell me the story of Iceland and how that all came together.
Both Iceland and New York were very specific, but I wish I could take credit for the choice in Iceland. I mean, it's I'd never been to Iceland before we decided on Iceland, and Darren had been there a number of times. And you know, look, knowing that we needed a wide array of landscapes, but particularly some dry and arid landscape during the drought, and then you know the lush Methuselah's Mountain. You know, that was Darren's vision from the beginning. So it worked out really well that Iceland was a budding film community and had some great production teams already there on the ground. They had shot a few big films there before we got there, and the crew, you know, the team with True North was incredible. So, you know, Iceland was always the location we wanted. I mean, of course, you know, we did our homework and we explored other areas. We explored South America, you know, Canary Islands, but we always came back to Iceland, you know, and it worked out really well. I mean, what a beautiful place. I mean, there's no place like it in the world. So, you know, it worked out. That's where we always wanted to film it. I mean, the varying and the different types of landscapes, from like dry desert-like to rock, you know, marsh, almost Mars-like, to lush green mountains, to I mean,
and there's water surrounding.
I mean, lava, you know, lava fields, you know, the moss. I mean, it's just, it has every type of landscape, you know, Earth-like and other world-like, you know, Mars-like. You know, it's incredible. It's a beautiful place to shoot, and you know, and you know, they had a tax credit there, so it made sense.
Tremendous use of location. And then the other thing that was amazing in that project was the also the visual effects of the body creation too, because for the fight scenes, I mean, you guys were basically producing additional bodies in visual effects on the ground. It was wild. I mean, everything you guys did was such a great achievement, outrageous, beautifully done. When you went off to Montreal to do Mother, I had the chance. It was funny. I visited the set for that because I was dropping my son off at college in upstate New York, in Canton, New York. So I looped through Montreal and came to the set to visit you guys. And I saw at Mel's Stages the house that you built, but I never went out to the exterior location that you shot at there. that was also once again an enclosed like building stage with a house built inside of it, and then clearly you had some type of exterior that the characters would go out into. Tell me about how that project came together in specifically in Montreal. Now I know that Darren had done Fountain in Montreal, but how did you guys end up shooting up there?
I mean, look, we always try to shoot in New York, like, I mean, people thought we were crazy to shoot Noah in New York. And that's just, we're New York filmmakers and we want to stay in New York and close to home, but it just didn't, we just couldn't do it with Mother. It didn't make sense financially and we just couldn't afford it. So Darren had a great experience making the Fountain in Montreal. It's close to New York. The crews out there are great and artist-like in their own right. So it made a lot of sense. Plus, we had a lot of visual effects shots. They have a great rebate for that, and it was a great experience. The two sets. I mean, that's the kind of thing that really separates Darren as a filmmaker from most filmmakers and the rest of them. I mean, his vision to most filmmakers and what a lot of people are pushing us to do for cost savings reasons was rather than build the house twice, would be to wrap it in green screen on the stage and just whenever there's a window he could put it in the outside. But to get the performances he was going for from the actors when they're outside and when we're looking out a window or you see out a window, it just felt, he knew, and it felt right to not put that whole film on a stage and have you go show up to a stage and work on a stage every day. And the way we built that's half the house outside, and we filmed those scenes. I think it really put the actors into the space. Not that they couldn't have performed without it, because they're all incredible talents, but just the actors, the crew, the feel, it really brought it to life, So I think that was a really smart decision. Expensive, but but smart.
Yeah, because you had to go from these. I remember being there in the scene where I believe Jennifer was going through the room trying to find her baby, and it was like this like chaotic interior scene, and then there are all these transitions to outdoors throughout, from the house to outdoors with Ed and of course Jennifer and Javier, and there's and then there are the images of the house from the outdoors, but you had a very seamless environment going back and forth.
Yeah. Thank you.
It's beautiful.
Thank you.
So what's your what is your desire and for next up for you for things outside the feature world? Do you ever, I never asked you guys whether you want to do episodic. I don't have any reference to know whether or not this is part of your world or whether you've already developed it, but I've never had a conversation with Darren about it, and I don't think or with you.
Look, I have some episodic projects that I'm working on. Maybe one or two with Darren, and then there's some things that I know he's working on that he might be working on with Ari. So there's a bunch of things floating around in the mix, and we'll figure out the formula for it. And but yeah, of course. I mean, in this world, how could you be closed-minded to wanting to do episodic television right now? Or episodic?
No. It was a question I was curious about, because I mean, clearly now in my world that's been sort of enveloping me in my working life outside of the fun that we have here. So I'm always curious to hear what my old friend is up to when it comes to that. Yeah.
That you'd have to ask him.
I will. I will.
You're talking to me, Charlie.
I try to get him on. So Darren, would you come on? Well, I don't have a project right now. No, I'm just joking. No. I mean, he and I have chatted about having him join me here. You have in your life, not only did you make a film called The Wrestler, but you have a young wrestler in your life. And I've seen videos of him do things that are quite remarkable on the wrestling mat. Tell me about your own personal connection to wrestling, and did your son get involved in wrestling because you yourself were a wrestler? Tell me more about that. I mean, I've seen the images. I know we're going out of the movie world, but I had to do that since this wrestling poster, the wrestler is behind me, and we've talked about wrestling.
Yeah, I have to say, Charlie, I do like that you have the Black Swan and the wrestler poster up there behind you, and what I like even more is that you didn't just put it up for me. That I watched your other podcasts and
every episode.
You have them on there in every episode. So thank you for that. Yeah, I mean, look, I was a wrestler when I was a kid. I wrestled in high school. I mean, obviously not professional wrestling, collegiate style and high school wrestling style. My son actually got involved in wrestling by chance. I didn't push him into it, but he was young, and we've lived in the town of Long Beach, New York, which has an incredible high school wrestling program. But when he was young, we took him to a day camp, and when we first moved to Long Beach, and the day camp was a few towns over, and he had to take a bus, and he was probably 6, 7 years old, and he absolutely hated the day camp. But we had to put him in something, so we brought him over to the Long Beach Rec, where they had like a local camp that was more regimented and a little more free. And it just so happened that the guy who ran it fell in love with my son, and my son fell in love with him as a counselor, the guy who was the director of the camp, and he actually happened to run a youth wrestling program. I never knew. I would have never thought. I didn't know that there was wrestling teams at 6, 7, 8 years old. And I just got to talking to him, and when the wrestling season started, he goes, "You got to bring Mason down and put him on the mat." And I said, "I'd love to." And then the rest was history. I mean, I helped coach the youth program with him for a while once Mason started, and then my other son started. So it's been a fun journey.
Important stuff in life.
Absolutely.
Right. I mean, I mean, for me, I guess, I mean, I have all of my outside activities, but wrestling's not one of them. Golf is, but no.
There you go.
But
I recently took up golf, Charlie. During this quarantine, it was like the first outdoor activity you can do. So I've played golf once a year at the Long Beach Wrestling golf outing, which really wasn't much of a golf outing. If by the time you get to the 6th hole, a bunch of wrestling dads and whatnot, playing golf. But I've tried to play a few times over the years, but it's hard when you do what we do, because it's like you can't take off for 4 or 5 hours in the middle of the day. And when you have kids, you can't just play on the weekend. It's like, you can't shut your phone off, and who wants to go on the golf course when you're staring at your phone, or you're waiting on a call, and who wants to play with you when you have to take a call. So I never really got into it. I never had the headspace for golf. And now, since quarantine, Charlie, maybe we have to get out on the links, me and you, huh?
We got to get out on the links together, brother.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
So I played maybe 10 times since this, because my phone's not ringing really. If I miss a call, it's not the end of the world. My head is clear, so I can golf.
It is such a lovely game, and it has gone through not only a renaissance during the pandemic, because it's one of the first sports that came back out, but you're right. We do have to turn our phones off and get into a peaceful space, which is what I love about the game.
Yeah.
I know I asked you before a little bit about growing up in Belmore, but I asked you not at all about your mom and dad and what your mom and dad did in life. What was your father's world like for work, and what was it like growing up in your family? Was your father was not a producer, right?
No. My father, when I was a kid, was in the bingo business, which in the 70s and 80s was a pretty big, as you know, gambling game around New York and the country and Canada. And his father was a bingo supply manufacturer, one of the first. So it was interesting, being around that crowd and those folks. But the most important thing for me, as far as the influence of my parents, is they always encouraged me to follow my dreams. When I told them that I wanted to get into the movie business and move out to LA, most parents, professionals, and that don't know the business, even parents that do know the business, would encourage their kid to go be an accountant or go to law school. And they never deterred me from my dreams. They always encouraged me to pursue my dreams and do what I want to do, and just whatever you do to give it 100%. And you know, like I said, I mean, I found my love in film through my relationship with film with my father as a young kid. So I credit them a lot for where I am in this industry and in my career. And that you know, I found my passion through him, and they always encouraged me. You know, when I was working.
They were cinema lovers. They liked the movie.
And not my, you know, he liked to go to the movies. He still does. I mean, he'd go to the movies 2-3 times a week. Even before this pandemic, if I could go with him, I'd go with his friends, and he'd see anything. So yeah, he definitely loved the movies, and he taught me to love the movies at a young age. Like I said, he would have me, he'd pull me out of school and lie and say at a doctor's appointment, he'd cut work, and we'd go to the movies together.
Wow.
You know? So, you know, it was kind of always in me. And so it kind of made sense when that's what I wanted to do. You know, I'd like to think I could have done anything I wanted if I put my mind to it, which is what, you know, how I was raised, and the encouragement they always gave me. And this is what I put my mind to. And you know, it's worked out okay so far.
And now that we have, you know, we've had to have a break in the action. I mean, I've been doing some things, but it's been a time where people have been able to sort of plan, right, for the future and think more. What has it been like for you during this period of time when you're not on set and not doing not being able to be on the run?
You know, in some ways it's been hard, and in some ways it's been a blessing. You know, on the work side, especially early on, it was frustrating not having the answers, not knowing when things were going to go, and there was a lot of planning to plan. You know, let's do this. Let's, you know, especially with films that we had coming up that we were hoping to shoot in the fall, like we mentioned, The Good Nurse. You know, it's like, you know, oh, if we can't shoot in New York, we'll shoot it here. We'll shoot it here. Which states are opening up to shoot during COVID? And, you know, then you plan for that state and you fill out the tech. And the actors don't know their dates. And then, you know, and then when you realize that it's just not in your control, and as soon as things open up, you open up, you know, you let it go a little bit. And then, you know, the blessings in it, like I said, is playing golf. But most importantly, is just more time with my kids and more time with my family, and, you know, taking up silly things. When I was a kid, I was you know, back in high school, I was an artist, you know, so I ordered, you know, some oil paints online at Amazon, and it started painting. You know, that lasted, you know, 3 weeks, a month, you know, and you just.
I love that. I want to see the work, man.
Nah, it's not ready yet, Charlie. I got to finish it.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. So, you know, just do different things, you know, and you know, it's, you know, we all were forced to unplug for a little bit. And, you know, if you're able to take advantage of that time with certain things, then you make the best of it. You know?
I personally subscribe to the Criterion channel on Apple TV, and just began to scour anything that I had not seen in my life.
There you go.
We do have more time to look at stuff, even if it's not the right way.
Any recommendations from the Criterion collection on Apple?
You know, right now, no.
Cool.
I don't have anything specific that I would recommend. I mean, I've been looking at the Kieślowski films like Blue, Red, and White, right? So, I mean, I would obviously recommend seeing those because they're classic. But no, you know, and then some of the Japanese classics,
Right.
you know, but you know, nothing. I would have to. I always sort of keep my list scattered and not systematically down. It kind of drives my girlfriend crazy because she says, "What should we watch tonight?" And I'll say, and she'll wonder why I don't have something on the tip of my tongue. I have to be inspired to see a film. But I will say that right now, looking back at movies like Wag the Dog and Bob Roberts and all those films, they feel like the right ones to be watching at a time like today. So
Wag the Dog
was such a classic project.
Yeah.
Love you with all my heart, brother.
Likewise, brother.
So much fun, and thank you for taking and carving out some time and to hang out and let's get our friend. I'm rounding up all of Protozoa. I the only one I have left is Darren, I think. No, I'm just kidding.
Get Ari on there, man.
Get Ari Handel. That's true. Ari Handel. Yes, yes.
Mhm.
Yeah, absolutely. And Mark Heyman. How are those guys doing? They're
Doing great. Doing great. Yep. Yep.
Yeah, they continue to write stuff that you guys and work with you guys.
Yep.
Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you so much for being here today, bro. Love you, love you, love you.
You got it, Charlie.
And we'll do this again sometime. Thank you.
I look forward to it, man. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, buddy.
All right, brother.